Joining us is Professor Sethulego Matebesi and political analyst Dr. Trevor Ngwane, Director of the Center for Sociological Research and Practice at the University of Johannesburg, to look ahead to the State of the Nation address. Gentlemen, a very good afternoon and thank you so much to the both of you for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Matebesi, let me start with you. I mean, as we look ahead to the President's State of the Nation address tonight, questions have always been the promises that have been made, either from last year or over the years since President Cyril Ramaphosa took over. Has he lived up to expectation? When he started in his first State of the Nation address and spoke about Tumamina, did he deliver on some of those things? Prof?
Yeah, good afternoon once again, and good afternoon to your viewers. A very difficult question to respond to, because if you look at government programs do not change overnight. Like, for instance, if there are key delivery priorities that may remain the same for a couple of years. But from a layman's perspective, there has been fundamental challenges that South Africans are facing. I mean, the promise about at least creating an enabling environment that will, contribute to job creation, that has not been met. If you look at the high number of unemployment of young people alone, that is a huge challenge, which I strongly believe that to a certain extent with the presidential job creation initiatives, yes, there has been a move, but too little to be able to make significant contribution to fight the scourge of unemployment and many other challenges where I strongly believe that it has been a vicious cycle of promises upon promises with, almost like muted achievements here and there.
Dr. Ngwane, bringing into the conversation and just picking up to what Professor Matebesi is saying, that more often than not, the State of the Nation becomes exactly about that, promises and promises, but not too much delivery in those promises. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, actually, thank you very much for having me. Actually, it's worse than that, because remember, when a promise is not fulfilled, there are consequences. So, for example, if you say you are going to provide jobs and then more people get unemployed, there's a new problem of poverty emerging. There's a problem of crime emerging. There's a problem of hunger, destitution, social fabric breaking down. So it's more than just a cycle of unfulfilled promises. Is the country deteriorating? Is the people's life conditions getting worse? Because for every unfulfilled promise, for every broken promise, someone suffers, and that has a consequence, not only for that person, but for society as a whole.
Should we then, Dr. Ngwane, expect anything different tonight in terms of the promises, but also maybe, especially because it's an election year, deliverables from the president, or is it still going to be all of the same?
Well, I expect something different, or, some turbocharge, because you are correct. It's not only an electioneering year, but also Ramaphosa could be the last ANC president to give a Sona address, because the ANC might actually lose its majority. So the next president might be Julius Malema or whoever, or if it is an ANC man or woman, they could be speaking not on behalf of an ANC government, but of a coalition government. So Ramaphosa will do his best to persuade, the disillusioned electorate to vote for the ANC. So he'll have to come with bigger promises. You can expect a lot of things, including, for example, ANC is facing the problem of ex-President Zuma and his MK party. So Zuma called Ramaphosa a proxy for white monopoly capital. He'll have to respond to those attacks. He might, because they want the vote of KZN and Zuma is there, he might reaffirm the Zulu king and traditional leaders. So there'll be a lot of promises to the general public, but also a response to the threat of the ANC losing its majority for the first time since we got our independence.
Professor Matebesi, picking up on what Dr. Ngwane is talking about, the issue of being an election year, is that likely going to galvanize the president to actually fast track, I guess, on some of the promises that he's made along the years?
No, it will be a futile attempt because I can't see how the president will be able to fast track on unfulfilled promises that have been made over a couple of years. I mean, we a few months away from the elections, and that's why also in South Africa we're sitting with a problem where it takes forever for the president to announce an election date. That in itself also has a lot to do with politicking, because you had to, when you are your foot, you find yourself being threatened, you need to devise all the means to try and respond to certain things. But look, we also have to give credit where it is due. There's a lot of good things that have been happening, but for me, it is just unacceptable, this whole narrative. Keep on saying we have built RDP houses. Yes, we have celebrated that. South Africa is a country that collected taxes. So no one should actually be celebrating building a house for somebody. That we've already passed that. I think that honeymoon years are over. The question that a South African today want to hear is that why do we have to spend so much money on our own personal security, to secure our houses, because South Africans have become a crime haven? What is the problem? Are we going to get more plans, more promises around the issue of fighting load shedding? What are the long-term vision? There have been plans in the past. Why are these plans failing? And very briefly, I can now state what the president is going to do in general. He's going to acknowledge that there has been challenges, but he will not go into detail about the challenges that I think will be to the detriment of the ruling party. And that's where the problem is, because a South African citizen today wants to hear, but how am I going to secure the future education of our students? Tertiary institution subsidies are being decreased, and yet we are a country that wants to promote education amongst our youth. And the question is, where is our funds going? What is happening to the fiscus? And that is a huge challenge that I strongly believe that the president has to address.
Would you then say that the negatives outweigh the positives? For instance, Prof, staying with you, the president kept his promise on the issue of unbundling the National Transmission Company. Also, recently with the NSFAS, to help finance the middle class, we had that announcement. But then ordinary South Africans will tell you about, as you've just touched on, issue of crime, ESCOM, job creation. Would you then say that as much as one can say the president will outline some of the positives that they've achieved, the negatives or the false promises unfortunately outweigh those positives? Prof?
Yeah, and you can't want to, for me, definitely outweighs that, the negative, experiences of South Africans, the lived experiences. And you can't want to try and remedy that with a 350 grant per month, or even using the South African welfare, situation to try and deal with the challenges that we've had. What we need in South Africa is the political will to fight corruption and let there be consequences. And I, as the chief executive officer of this country, we can't forever blame the treasury and all that, but there should be consequence management, and it is the responsibility of the president. Actually, is constitutionally mandated to take action where people are involved in rampant corruption or actually a non-performance in delivering what they've promised.
Dr. Ngwane, are you expecting the president to address the issue then of corruption? Because it has been a thorn not only on his administration but on the ANC for years. Do you expect him to address that and come out with it and maybe be a little bit more positive around that?
Yeah, he has got no choice but to mention it. But remember, he is also in trouble because all that money which was found in his house, those dollars in a mattress or couch, so he's very compromised. So he has to mention it, but he will skirt the issue, walk on it like on eggshells. So that's the pity about the ANC. It has lost its moral compass. And unfortunately, most, or if not all, its top leaders are compromised in terms of corruption, in terms of getting money from government contracts, in terms of looting the state. And looting the state, remember, it can be done both legally and illegally. So everyone wants a piece of the pie. The culture of self-enrichment has replaced the culture of revolutionary sacrifice. So all the leaders are compromised, and none of them can speak with authority or credibility on issues such as honesty, integrity, and upright leadership. So that will be Ramaphosa's problem.
Gentlemen, unfortunately we're out of time, but thanks to the both of you for coming through, Professor Matebesi and Dr. Ngwane, as we look ahead to the State of the Nation address by the President later in the evening.